Hey everybody. Sitting here today and I'm thinking about America, the country that I live in. I'm watching the news and I've been hearing for years, 2 years, how horrible our president is. With lots of proof that we're going to see. Where's the proof? People are waiting with bated breath for the Mueller report to come out. I don't expect much of anything that truly would implicate our sitting president. And I mean nothing. Nothing that would fall outside of the purview of a businessman. So I have to ask myself a question. And that question is, why? Why the hell did this happen? How is it that this nation, the strongest nation in the world, the most influential nation that has ever risen, lets this happen? The most sophisticated intel systems. It just doesn't matter. Our skills, our technology, the billions of dollars that we spend, the amount of personnel that we have dedicated to this task, and still we find ourselves in this situation. So I want to know why. How did this even happen? How did this even become an issue? How did the idea that President Trump was somehow a Russian spy, how did that even happen? When I speak to my Democratic friends, they like to tell me that Donald Trump's behavior and support of pro-Russia ideals or thought processes that fell in line with Vladimir Putin, that somehow signifies a connection. Well, let me tell you something. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I live in the United States. I'm a citizen of this country. I agree with some of what Putin has to say. Why? Because he points out some of the harsh truths that we have allowed our country to steep into. The concept of empire building under the guise of bringing liberty and freedom and democracy to the world. Perhaps the whole world isn't ready for that yet. Perhaps you arrogant little pricks that think that everything is equal fails to realize the unique opportunity that you've been born into. For the first time in history, a group of people have been able to expand a whole different set of ideals than which governed before, and have grown and started to promote the ideals of equality, true equality. And yet we see the injustice on the news today. Why is that? Why do we sit here and we allow this to happen? We let them pit Republicans against Democrats, when perhaps we need more parties. Perhaps we need another solution. Perhaps the environmentalists aren't insane. Perhaps those that don't think climate change is man-made are not insane. Perhaps there's a little bit in the middle. There's some true nuggets in all of this bullshit. That's the bad thing about politics. It turns beautiful thoughts and concepts and ideals that we can strive to achieve, and it puts them in between two big giant turds. And they're served up as shit sandwiches, and they don't taste good to anybody, and they don't look appeasing to anybody. That's politics today. That's our country. What can we do about it? Well, we can recognize the pattern, right? That's the first step of being able to establish what's going on. One, we've got to recognize there's a problem, establish a pattern. If we establish the pattern, we can start to identify the source of the problems. What is some of those problems? What are some of the things that have happened, the patterns that have happened that indicate where the problems might lie? Well, how about this covert imperialism? How about that? That ring a bell to anybody? Does that make you think that perhaps we might have some small part of responsibility to play in the way the world functions now? The unrest, that maybe the bad choices made by our elected officials might have something to do with that? For instance, check this out. Venezuela. Venezuela is in a horrible situation right now. Horrible. If you look at the past, say, 6-7 years, you can see this increase in fuel prices. As a matter of fact, go back to the Sochi Olympics. If you go back and then to that time, that's when we can see the breakdown as far as publicly of the relationship between the United States and Russia. The news media was making fun of Russia via the Sochi Olympics because of the problems in the hotels, construction issues. That was the first seed of Russia being a problem. But when Mitt Romney said that it was a problem, right, he was crazy. Not that I support Mitt Romney. Don't take this as a support of Mitt Romney, please. But however, that fact still remains true. Now, we get this Russia, Russia, Russia. And then we get this whole situation in Ukraine. Now, that's where it gets real interesting because Paul Manafort's in that one. But we won't chase that rabbit right now. But it gets real interesting once it starts. You get Ukraine going on, you get the split, and you get the EU versus siding with Russia versus siding with EU. You got the Black Sea and the Russian port, and all these little pieces of data that are very important to consider when considering the overall issue. And the reason why the pieces are moving the way they move. You need to know about players like Victoria Nuland and what she had to do with it. But for the overall construct, we don't really need to get into that, so we'll stay on point. The narrative against Russia was built. Russia has lots of oil reserves. By driving down the price of fuel, it hurt their economy. It was part of the sanctions moves on Russia. It was pre-sanction moves on Russia. So this great gas deal that Obama gave you all, that was the first shot of the goddamn war. The first shot. Bam. Just gonna cut them out of the market because we're gonna drive the fuel prices down so far that it hurts their economy. And then we're gonna sanction them. Double whammy, man. Brilliant, huh? How's that for non-aggression? How's that for a peace prize winner? Very strategic. So I have to ask myself, why is the media this whole time been talking about how, the economy is doing okay, the gas prices are going down, and it's like it's a good thing. It's not. It's a horrible sign of things to come. Now that we're sitting here, where we are today, we can look back there and say, yeah, that was a bad sign of something to come. So, lower gas prices affected Venezuela. Okay, all my Republican friends, now I'm not a Republican, by the way, but all my Republican friends, they all like to tell me that Venezuela is a shining example of what socialism will bring. That's insanity to me. Absolutely insanity. A nation that was doing great, doing fine, had a lot of potential, even amidst the issues that were going on with global trade and trying to find their niche and the shifts in power and all these problems that are going on and injustices because injustices exist in any form of government. That's another topic, but they were still providing things for their people and doing it their way. Not our way, their way. Their right. As living, breathing, fucking human beings. But no, we don't want to afford them that. We want to use the failure of their system as an example of why healthcare and education provided to your populace is a bad idea. Come on, guys, get your act together. That's ludicrous. Venezuela fell because lower gas prices. There's other things that connect to it and add to it, and the way that the government reacted, their government reacted to the problem, the way that free enterprise was driven out. A lot of things add into it. But free healthcare, or universal healthcare, because there's nothing free except interest on dollar bills. Anyway, that's another topic too. Free healthcare or universal healthcare and education. Now, let's explore those two ideas for a second. Healthcare. A healthy population is a productive population, right? Less stress, less problems, better cohesiveness, works better, more profitable. Kind of like an investment, right? For optimal performance. Then let's look at education. Education, by far, is one of the most important things that this country can do for itself. It's not making sure that everybody's the same. That's not education, that's indoctrination. Education is the transference of knowledge, good information, to another so that they can do this, they can accomplish a task, they can learn how to be a doctor, a lawyer, a surgeon, you know, a whatever, operator on a crane, anything, build houses, you know, do plumbing. Whatever, a writer, an actor, whatever your niche is that you want to do in society, it is better if you're educated so that you can do that rather than being uneducated and unable and being a burden. Now, we say that people won't value things they don't get for free. Define free. Everything is relative. Okay? Everything is relative. I'm not saying that everybody should be able to get into Harvard. I'm not even saying that everybody should be able to go to a community college and not pay. What I am saying is that the availability to acquire education online for free and to get a degree through that process, even if you have to do an extra long internship, even if there's some criteria that going to college gives you a benefit, a step you can skip, that option needs to be made available to every living fucking human on this continent. And I didn't say country. I said continent. Didn't say world. Could be world. But we are neighbors, man. We're not separated by the big waters. We're neighbors. Why aren't we looking out for each other? Why aren't we making sure that we all get ahead? Now, I get accused of being a leftist for thinking that way. I'm just me. I believe that right now in history, we suffer from a severe short-term memory loss. Things are happening geopolitically that are very dangerous. If we don't, as a nation, understand this, if we don't move forward trying to make the world a better, safer place. We will get exactly what we got coming because we're too foolish to see the real enemy. Parts of the enemy have been showing themselves left and right. The news media, what do? What does Fox News do to you? What does CNN do to you? What does MSNBC do to you? Shit, PBS, BBC, even NPR. What do? Division. Or they support the war narrative. Or they counter the narrative, but they box it in such a way that facts surrounding it are overlooked. Why? Why do they overlook the glaringly obvious? Why have they stood up behind the power that we have given them, and they do these horrible things, and the news media covers for them, and we sit back and we believe the bullshit? We suck it down like ice cream. Give me some more of that shit sandwich, please. This whole 2 years has been the greatest show ever. And I really hope it's about to get better. I really do. Trump seems like he's an outsider. So maybe he is. If he is, they better watch out. They better watch out because the population is getting smart. We're finally catching on to your tricks. And eventually, your lives won't matter no more. You won't use the power of the people to go make war. You won't, because they won't give it to you anymore. There'll be no power. There'll be no control. Not for you, anyway. For what's going on in France, what's going on in the UK, what's going on in America, what's going on in lots of places around the world. It's just a matter of time before the people either wake up or the boot comes down. And with the recent events, things gotta speed up. If they don't, who's gonna watch anymore? Enjoy the show.